What if the person you've spent your whole life trying to please is the one keeping you from your true power? Imagine this: you've been giving, caring, and bending over backward for everyone else, only to feel drained, unseen, and stuck. If you're an empath, this might hit closer to home than you'd like to admit. But here's the truth Carl Jung uncovered: when you stop pleasing everyone and start seeing your own truth, something incredible happens. Your life transforms in ways you never thought possible. In this video, we're diving into the 5 powerful stages an empath goes through when they finally say no more, and how you can start this journey today. Ready to discover what happens when you reclaim your power? Let's find out. Have you ever felt like you're carrying the weight of everyone else's emotions, while your own get buried deeper and deeper? If you're an empath, this might feel like your everyday reality. But here's a truth bomb: that Carl Jung's wisdom shines a light on your incredible ability to feel so deeply, to tune into the unspoken pain of others. Isn't just a gift. It's often a survival mechanism born from a hidden wound. In this chapter, we're peeling back the layers to uncover where this empathic superpower comes from, why it feels like a double-edged sword, and how understanding its roots can set you on the path to healing. Let's dive in. First, let's get one thing straight. Being an empath isn't something you were born with, like blue eyes or curly hair. It's not a divine blessing dropped into your lap. More often than not, it's something forged in the fires of your early life, shaped by moments when you had to adapt to survive. Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, I would call this a response to the psyche's silent pilgrimage, a journey where your soul learned to prioritize others' needs to keep the peace. But at what cost? For many empaths, the cost is a wound so subtle, so deeply buried, that you might not even realize it's there. Carl Jung called it the wound of self-erasure, the slow, quiet act of dimming your own light to make others feel comfortable. Let's paint a picture with a story. Meet Sarah, a 32-year-old graphic designer living in Chicago. Growing up, Sarah's home was an emotional minefield. Her mother struggled with unpredictable moods, swinging from warmth to cold silence without warning. As a child, Sarah learned to read the room like a master detective. She could sense her mother's tension before a single word was spoken: tight shoulders, a clipped tone, or the way the air felt heavier. To avoid conflict, Sarah became the peacemaker. She'd crack a joke, offer to help with chores, or swallow her own feelings to keep her mother calm. It wasn't because she wanted to, it was because she had to. That's how she stayed safe. That's how she earned love. Sound familiar if you're an empath? You might see pieces of yourself in Sarah's story. Maybe you grew up in a home where you had to anticipate someone's anger to avoid a storm. Maybe you learned to smile through your own pain to keep things okay for everyone else. Carl Jung's work tells us this isn't random, it's a survival strategy. As children, empaths often develop their heightened sensitivity, not because the world celebrated their spirit, but because they needed to navigate emotional chaos. You became a mirror, reflecting what others needed to see, while your own reflection faded. This is where the hidden wound comes in. Every time you said yes when you meant no. Every time you pushed your needs aside to soothe someone else. You chipped away at your sense of self. Carl Jung would say you were crafting a persona, a mask you wear to fit in, to be loved, to avoid rejection. But here's the kicker: that mask isn't you. It's a costume, stitched together from childhood fears and unspoken rules. And over time, wearing it feels normal. You become so good at sensing others' emotions, picking up on the tremble in a friend's voice, the tension in a coworker's email, that you forget how to feel yourself. Your sensitivity, praised as compassion or intuition, is often the visible scar of an invisible wound. Let's pause for a second. Does this resonate with you? Have you ever caught yourself apologizing for something that wasn't your fault, just to keep the peace? Or maybe you felt exhausted after a conversation, not because you were talking, but because you were carrying someone else's emotions. That exhaustion isn't just tiredness, it's a signal from your psyche. It's your soul whispering, "Hey, what about me?" Carl Jung believed that the psyche doesn't lie. When you feel drained, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a wake-up call. Your empathic nature, while beautiful, was often summoned by necessity, not choice. And understanding that is the first step to healing. So, what's the wound really about? It's not just about pleasing others, it's about losing yourself in the process. Sarah, our graphic designer, realized this in her late 20s. She was everyone's go-to person. Friends called her to vent. Her boss relied on her to pick up extra work. And even strangers seemed to open up to her at coffee shops. But one day, after a particularly draining phone call with a friend who never asked how she was doing, Sarah snapped. Not outwardly, but inside, she felt a wave of resentment, followed by a terrifying question: who am I when I'm not helping someone else? That question shook her to her core, because the answer was silence. She'd spent so long being what others needed that she didn't know who she was. This is the empath's hidden wound, the loss of self. Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the journey to become your true self, starts with recognizing this wound. It's not about blaming your past or the people who shaped you. It's about seeing the truth. Your sensitivity was a survival tool, but it doesn't have to define you. You're not doomed to carry everyone else's pain forever. You can choose to feel deeply without losing yourself. And that choice begins with awareness. Here's a practical step to start healing. Take a moment this week to notice when you're saying yes out of habit or fear. Maybe it's agreeing to help a colleague when you're already overwhelmed, or staying quiet when someone crosses a boundary. Write it down. Ask yourself, what would I say if I wasn't afraid of upsetting them? This simple act of reflection is like shining a flashlight into the shadows of your psyche. It's not about changing everything overnight. It's about starting to listen to you. Before we move on, let's make this personal. In the comments below, share a moment when you felt like you were carrying someone else's emotions. What did it feel like? Or maybe you've started noticing when you're dimming your own light to keep others comfortable. We're all on this journey together, and your story might inspire someone else to take their first step. Stay with us, because in the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when the empath hits their breaking point and says no more. What happens when you hit a wall so hard that even your endless empathy can't keep you going? For empaths, there comes a moment, a breaking point, when the weight of everyone else's needs becomes too much, and something inside snaps, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet, seismic shift that changes everything. Carl Jung would call this the psyche's rebellion, the moment when your soul says, enough is enough. In this chapter, we're diving into what happens when an empath stops pleasing everyone and starts questioning the life they've built around others' expectations. This is where the real transformation begins. Let's explore it together. Picture this. You're saying yes to yet another favor, smiling through gritted teeth, while a voice inside whispers, "Why am I doing this?" That voice is small at first, barely audible over the noise of your people-pleasing habits, but it grows louder with every overextended yes. Every drained evening, every time you feel invisible in your own life. For empaths, this breaking point isn't just exhaustion, it's a wake-up call from the depths of your psyche. Carl Jung believed that the psyche doesn't let you stay comfortable in a lie forever. When you've spent years prioritizing others, Your soul eventually demands to be heard. Let's meet Mark, a 35-year-old high school teacher from Seattle. Mark was the guy everyone turned to. Colleagues asked him to cover their classes. Friends leaned on him for advice. And his family expected him to mediate every argument. He prided himself on being reliable, the one who could handle it all. But deep down, Mark was drowning. One day, after agreeing to help a co-worker finish a project while his own work piled up, he felt a wave of resentment so strong it scared him. Sitting in his car after work, he stared at his phone, dreading another call from a friend who always needed something. That's when the question hit him like a freight train. Why am I always the one fixing everyone else's problems? That moment was Mark's breaking point. The moment he realized he couldn't keep going like this. If you're an empath, you've probably had a moment like Mark's. Maybe it was after a long conversation where you listened, but weren't heard. Maybe it was when you said, "I'm fine," for the 100th time, even though you were falling apart. This breaking point isn't about being selfish, it's about survival. Carl Jung's concept of individuation teaches us that to become your true self, you have to face the parts of your life that no longer serve you. For empaths, that means confronting the habit of pleasing others at your own expense. It's not easy. Saying no feels like betrayal when you're used to being the caretaker. But here's the truth. That feeling of betrayal is your psyche signaling that you've been betraying yourself all along. What does this breaking point feel like? It's not just physical exhaustion, though that's part of it. It's a bone-deep fatigue that sleep can't fix. It's a restlessness that makes you question everything, why you're always the one to apologize, why you feel guilty for wanting time alone, why you're so good at reading others but so lost when it comes to yourself. For Mark, it showed up as resentment, but for others, it might be sadness, irritability, or even a quiet panic that you're losing yourself. Carl Jung would say this is the psyche's way of stirring, like a seed breaking through the soil. It's uncomfortable, but it's the first step toward growth. Here's a real-world example of how this plays out. After his breaking point, Mark started noticing how often he said yes out of habit. One day, a colleague asked him to take on an extra class, and instead of his usual automatic agreement, he paused. He felt his chest tighten, his instinct screaming to avoid conflict. But he said, "I can't this time, I'm swamped." The world didn't end. His colleague nodded and moved on. That small no was a crack in the armor of Mark's people-pleasing persona. It wasn't easy, but it felt like taking a deep breath after years of holding it in. So, how can you start recognizing your own breaking point? Here's a practical step. Pay attention to your body. Your body is like a truth detector for your psyche. Notice when you feel tense, drained, or resentful after agreeing to something. That's your soul waving a red flag. Try this exercise for one day. Track every time you say yes to something you don't want to do. Write it down in a notebook or your phone. Next to each one, ask, why did I say yes? Was it for me or for them? This simple act of awareness can help you see how often you're putting others' needs above your own. It's not about guilt, it's about clarity. Carl Jung's wisdom reminds us that this breaking point isn't a failure, it's an invitation. It's your psyche asking you to stop running from yourself. The moment you start questioning why you're always the one giving, you're stepping into the journey of individuation. You're beginning to peel back the layers of the persona you've built to please others. It's scary, yes, but it's also liberating. Because when you hit this breaking point, you're not just saying no to others, you're saying yes to yourself. Let's make this personal. In the comments below, think about a time you said yes when you wanted to say no. How did it make you feel? Maybe it was a small moment, like agreeing to a favor when you were exhausted, or a big one, like staying in a relationship that drained you. Share your story. It might help someone else recognize their own breaking point. And stick with us, because in the next chapter, we'll dive into what happens when that breaking point leads to a powerful emotion rage. It's not what you think, it's the fire that sets you free. What if the anger you've been suppressing is actually the key to setting yourself free for empaths? The idea of feeling rage can feel like stepping into forbidden territory. You've spent years being the peacemaker, the one who smooths things over, the one who swallows their own feelings to keep everyone else comfortable. But when you hit your breaking point and stop pleasing everyone, something unexpected emerges from the depths of your psyche raw. Unfiltered rage. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of yourself you've buried to stay good. In this chapter, we're diving into how embracing this sacred anger, far from being destructive, becomes the fire that burns away old patterns and helps you reclaim your power. Let's unpack this together. When you first feel this rage, it's unsettling. It's not the quiet frustration of a bad day, it's a primal, fiery energy that surges up when you realize how long you've let others cross your boundaries. For empaths, this anger feels like a betrayal of who you are. After all, you're the compassionate one, the listener, the healer. But Carl Jung's wisdom tells us that this rage isn't your enemy, it's your ally. It's the voice of the part of you that's been silenced, the part that's tired of being exploited, dismissed, or ignored. This is the shadow stepping forward, demanding to be seen. And when you embrace it, you start to build boundaries that protect your soul. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Lisa, a 29-year-old social worker from Denver. Lisa was everyone's rock. Her friends called her their therapist, and her family leaned on her to solve every crisis. She prided herself on her ability to stay calm, even when people took advantage of her kindness. But one day, her best friend asked her to drop everything to help with a last-minute move. After months of one-sided support, Lisa felt a spark of anger she couldn't ignore. Instead of saying yes like always, she said, "I can't. Right now I need to take care of myself." Her friend was shocked, and Lisa felt a pang of guilt, but also a rush of power. For the first time, she saw how her kindness had been manipulated, and that realization lit a fire inside her. If you're an empath, you might recognize this moment. Maybe it was when a coworker expected you to fix their mistake, or when a family member dismissed your needs while demanding your help. That spark of rage isn't a sign you're becoming cold or selfish. It's a sacred signal. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow teaches us that the parts of ourselves we reject, like anger or the need to say no, are essential to becoming whole. Your rage is the warrior archetype waking up, ready to defend your boundaries. It's not about lashing out or hurting others. It's about saying, "No more." It's about protecting the sacred space that is you. So, what does embracing this rage look like? It's not about yelling or burning bridges. It's about letting yourself feel the anger without judgment. For Lisa, it started with small acts of courage. After saying no to her friend, she began noticing other ways she'd let people cross her boundaries, like staying late at work to cover for colleagues or agreeing to plans she didn't want. Each time she felt that spark of anger, she paused and asked, "What am I protecting by saying yes?" The answer was often fear, fear of conflict, fear of being unlikable. But by acknowledging her anger, she started setting boundaries, like declining extra work or telling her friend, "I need you to check in with me too." These moments felt like violence at first, because empaths aren't used to prioritizing themselves. But Carl Jung would say this isn't violence, it's self-love in its most primal form. Here's a practical step to try the next time you feel that spark of anger. Don't push it down. Instead, give it space. Grab a journal and write down what made you angry. Maybe it's a friend who never reciprocates, or a boss who expects too much. Ask yourself, what boundary do I need to set here? Then practice saying it out loud. Even if it's just to yourself, I'm not available for this. Or I need space right now. This isn't about being confrontational, it's about reclaiming your energy. If writing feels too heavy, try a grounding exercise. Take 5 deep breaths, focusing on releasing the tension in your body. This helps you channel your rage into clarity instead of guilt. Carl Jung's idea of shadow work is about integrating these buried parts of yourself. Your anger isn't toxic, it's a teacher. It shows you where your boundaries have been violated, where you've given too much, where you've abandoned yourself. For Lisa, embracing her rage meant letting go of relationships that thrived on her self-sacrifice. Her friend didn't take kindly to her new boundaries, and their relationship faded. It hurt, but it also freed Lisa to connect with people who respected her needs. This is the power of the shadow. It clears space for relationships built on mutual respect, not exploitation. Let's make this real for you. In the comments below, share one boundary you've been afraid to set. Maybe it's saying no to a family member who always asks for favors, or standing up to a friend who takes more than they give. What's holding you back? Fear of conflict, guilt, or something else? Your story could inspire someone else to take that first step toward embracing their own rage. And stay with us, because in the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when you face the void that comes after saying no, and how it becomes the womb of your rebirth. What happens when you stop saying yes to everyone else and are left with nothing? For empaths, the moment you start setting boundaries and saying no can feel like stepping into a vast, empty void. It's as if the person you've been, the one who fixes, soothes, and sacrifices, disappears, and you're left wondering, who am I now? This emptiness can be terrifying, but Carl Jung would call it the womb of transformation, a sacred space where your true self begins to take shape. In this chapter, we're diving into how this void, far from being the end, is the birthplace of your rebirth. It's where you rediscover who you are when you're not defined by others' needs. Let's explore this pivotal moment together. When you stop pleasing everyone, the world gets quiet. The constant buzz of others' demands fades, and you're left with a stillness that feels both unfamiliar and unnerving. For empaths, this void is disorienting because your identity has been so tied to being needed. Without that role, you might feel like you're floating in a sea of nothingness, unsure of what's left. Carl Jung's concept of individuation teaches us that this emptiness isn't a punishment, it's a necessary part of the journey. It's the psyche's way of clearing out the old to make room for the new. The void is where you begin to hear your own voice. Maybe for the first time in years. Let's ground this in a story. Meet James, a 40-year-old software engineer from Austin. For years, James was the go-to person in his circle, helping his parents with their finances, supporting his partner through endless crises, and being the reliable friend who never said no. But after hitting his breaking point and setting boundaries, like telling his partner he needed space to focus on himself, James felt lost. The people who once filled his days with requests suddenly pulled back. His phone stopped ringing as often, and his calendar was eerily empty. At first, this silence felt like rejection. He wondered, if I'm not helping someone, am I even valuable? But in that quiet, something unexpected happened. James started writing again, a passion he'd abandoned in his 20s. He began journaling about his feelings, rediscovering dreams he'd buried under the weight of others' expectations. If you're an empath, you might know this void. Maybe it came after you turned down a friend's last-minute favor, or when you left a toxic job that drained you. The silence can feel like a loss, like you're grieving the person you used to be. But Carl Jung would say this isn't a loss, it's a death of the false self. The version of you that existed to please others was never the real you, it was a persona, a mask crafted to fit in. When that mask falls away, the void feels empty because it's making space for something authentic to emerge. This is the rebirth. The moment you start to reconnect with the primordial you, the person you were, before you learn to prioritize everyone else. What does this void feel like? It's not just loneliness, though that can be part of it. It's a mix of confusion, fear, and a strange kind of freedom. You might feel like you're standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure of what's next. For James, it showed up as restless nights and a nagging sense of, what now? But it also brought moments of clarity, like when he wrote a poem for the first time in years and felt a spark of joy he hadn't known since childhood. Carl Jung believed the psyche speaks in these moments, often through dreams or sudden urges to create. You might dream of open fields, crumbling walls, or even shedding skin symbols of letting go and becoming new. These aren't random. They're your soul's way of guiding you toward rebirth. Here's a practical step to navigate the void. Give yourself permission to sit in it. Instead of filling the silence with distractions like saying yes to avoid discomfort, try spending 10 minutes a day doing something just for you. It could be journaling, like James did, or something as simple as listening to music you love, taking a walk, or sketching. Ask yourself, what do I enjoy when no one's watching? This small act of self-connection is like planting a seed in the fertile ground of the void. It doesn't have to be profound, it just has to be yours. If you're struggling, try this prompt. Write down one thing you loved as a child, but stopped doing because life got in the way. Then, take one small step to bring it back. The rebirth that comes from this void isn't instant. It's a slow unfolding, like a flower opening to the sun. For James, it meant rediscovering his love for writing, but also learning to enjoy his own company. He started saying no to plans that didn't excite him and yes to things that lit him up, like joining a local poetry group. The void taught him that he didn't need to be needed to be valuable. He was enough on his own. This is what Carl Jung calls the true self, the part of you that exists beyond roles, expectations, or masks. It's the you that feels alive, not just useful. Let's make this personal. In the comments below, share one thing you've discovered about yourself when you stopped trying to please others. Maybe it's a hobby you picked up, a feeling you finally acknowledged, or a dream you're starting to chase. Or, if you're still in the void, tell us what it feels like. What's the hardest part about this stillness? Your story might help someone else see that the void isn't the end, but the beginning. Stay with us, because in the next chapter, we'll explore how this rebirth transforms you into a sovereign empath, someone who lives their truth and radiates a new kind of power. What does it feel like to finally live for you, not for the approval of others, but for the truth in your soul? For empaths, the journey from pleasing everyone to embracing your own truth leads to a powerful transformation. You become a sovereign empath. This isn't about becoming selfish or shutting the world out. It's about standing in your power, setting boundaries with love, and attracting relationships that honor the real you. Carl Jung's concept of individuation reaches its peak here, as you align with your authentic self and radiate a magnetic energy that changes how the world sees you. In this final chapter, we'll explore what it means to live as a sovereign empath, how to embody your truth, and the incredible shift that happens when you do. Let's dive in. Being a sovereign empath means knowing where you end and others begin. It's about giving from a place of fullness, not depletion, and choosing connections that lift you up rather than drain you. After navigating the void and facing your shadow, you've shed the old patterns of self-erasure. You're no longer the emotional sponge soaking up everyone's pain. You're a beacon of authenticity, grounded in your own truth. Carl Jung would say, this is the moment you integrate all parts of yourself, the light, the shadow, the rage, and the love into a whole, radiant being. And the result, you attract people who see you, not just what you can do for them. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Emma, a 34-year-old yoga instructor from Portland. For years, Emma was the fixer in her friend group, always available to listen, help, or mediate. But after hitting her breaking point and embracing her rage, she started setting boundaries. She said no to plans that didn't feel right and stopped rushing to rescue friends who never reciprocated. At first, the void was lonely. Some friends drifted away, unable to handle her new assertiveness. But as Emma leaned into her truth, she noticed a shift. She joined a community of artists who valued her for her creativity, not her availability. She started teaching yoga classes that reflected her unique philosophy, and her students were drawn to her authenticity. Emma wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving as a sovereign empath. If you're an empath, you might be on the cusp of this transformation. Maybe you've started saying no to things that don't align with you. Or you're noticing who stays and who leaves when you set boundaries. This is the essence of sovereignty, not arrogance, but alignment. It's about giving from overflow, not obligation, and surrounding yourself with people who respect your worth. Carl Jung's wisdom tells us that when you live authentically, your energy shifts. You stop vibrating at the frequency of martyrdom and start radiating the clarity of self-love. The result, the energy vampires. The takers, the ones who thrived on your self-sacrifice, they fall away, and in their place come connections that feel like home. So, how do you step fully into this sovereign empath energy? Here are 3 practical steps to live your truth. Identify your core values. Take a moment to write down what matters most to you. Freedom, creativity, honesty, connection. These are your guiding stars. When faced with a decision, ask, does this align with my values? If it doesn't, it's okay to walk away. For Emma, valuing creativity meant teaching yoga in a way that felt true to her, not copying trends to please others. Practice saying no without guilt. Start small. The next time someone asks for a favor that feels draining, try saying, I can't right now, but I appreciate you asking. You don't need to explain or apologize. Practice this in front of a mirror. If it feels scary, it's like building a muscle. Each no strengthens your boundaries and frees up space for what lights you up. Honor your emotions as an empath. You're used to feeling everyone else's emotions, but now it's time to feel your own. Set aside 5 minutes a day to check in with yourself. Ask, what am I feeling right now? What do I need? It could be rest, a good cry, or a moment of joy. Honoring your emotions builds the foundation for living authentically. These steps aren't just tasks. They're acts of rebellion against a world that often expects empaths to give until they're empty. For Emma, living her truth meant letting go of friendships that only worked when she played the savior. It was painful, but it cleared space for relationships that felt reciprocal. She found herself surrounded by people who valued her ideas, not just her emotional labor. This is what Carl Jung calls the alchemical transformation, turning the pain of self-erasure into the gold of self-love. As a sovereign empath, you become a mirror for others, not by absorbing their pain, but by reflecting their potential for truth. Your presence alone can inspire others to live authentically, because you're no longer bending to fit their expectations. You're not here to carry the world. You're here to shine so brightly that others remember their own light. And here's the magic when you live this way. You attract soul-aligned connections. The friends, partners, and communities who stay are the ones who see you, honor you, and meet you as equals. Let's make this real for you. In the comments below, share one step you'll take today to live more authentically. Maybe it's saying no to a draining request, writing down your core values, or giving yourself permission to feel your emotions without judgment. Or tell us about a moment when you felt truly aligned with your truth. What did it feel like? Your story could spark courage in someone else. Stay with us, because in our outro, we'll wrap up this journey with a powerful call to embrace your sovereignty and transform your life. You are not here to carry the world's pain. You are here to shine your light. Let that sink in for a moment. As an empath, you've spent so much of your life giving, pleasing, and putting others first. But this journey we've explored together, through the hidden wound, the breaking point, the rage, the void, and the rebirth has shown you something profound. Your sensitivity is not your burden. It's your superpower. Carl Jung's wisdom has guided us to see that when you stop pleasing everyone and start living your truth, you become a sovereign empath, a force of authenticity, radiating love and power from a place of wholeness. This isn't just a transformation, it's a revolution of the soul. Your path forward is clear. Embrace your truth. Set boundaries with love, and trust that the right people will stay the ones who see you, honor you, and meet you as equals. You're not here to dim your light to make others comfortable. You're here to glow so brightly that you inspire others to find their own. So, take this moment to commit to one small act of sovereignty today, whether it's saying no without guilt, honoring your emotions, or rediscovering a piece of yourself you've buried. You've got this. If this journey resonated with you, let us know in the comments. What's one step you're taking to live as a sovereign empath? Hit that like button if this video spoke to your soul, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe to Jung Psyche Hub and tap the bell so you never miss a video that could change the way you see yourself. Your sensitivity is your strength, and your truth is your power. Stop pleasing, start seeing, and watch your life transform. Let's keep this journey going together.